Jamie stands frozen in shock as her sister Amber shines the wedding spotlight on her and her 6-year-old son Tyler. The microphone amplifies Amber's cruel words. "Everyone, here's my single, mom, sister, and her broke little boy. Anyone want to bid on this set?" The crowd of elite wedding guests laughs. Jamie's mother grabs the microphone. "Let's start at $0, shall we?" Tyler clutches Jamie's leg, tears streaming down his cheeks. Then, from the back of the ballroom, someone slowly raises their hand. A tall man Jamie hasn't seen in 12 years. The spotlight burned against my skin as I stood paralyzed, unable to shield Tyler from the humiliation. How had I ended up here? The journey that led to this moment of public shame began long before Amber's lavish wedding day. Growing up in Portland, I had always been the responsible one. While Amber skipped class and partied through high school, I maintained perfect grades and won art competitions. Our parents, particularly our mother Diane, constantly reminded me to look after your little sister despite the fact that Amber never seemed to face consequences for her actions. I became the designated caretaker, the one who cleaned up messes that weren't mine. After graduating with honors in graphic design, I landed a position at a respected agency in Seattle. My career was taking off, with clients specifically requesting my work. I had my own apartment, a growing savings account, and a future full of possibilities. Then I met Scott during a client meeting. Handsome, charming, and apparently successful, he swept me off my feet with romantic gestures and promises of forever. When I discovered I was pregnant 7 months into our relationship, Scott initially seemed supportive. We moved in together, and I continued working while preparing for our baby. But as my due date approached, Scott grew distant. One morning when I was 7 months pregnant, I woke to find his side of the bed empty and a hastily scribbled note, "Can't do this. Sorry." His phone was disconnected, his social media deactivated. He vanished completely, leaving me alone with rent I could no longer afford on maternity leave. I moved back to Portland, swallowing my pride and accepting my parents' offer to stay with them until I got back on my feet. Amber, then in college, made her disapproval clear. "Must be nice to get free rent," she'd remark, conveniently forgetting our parents had paid her entire tuition. Tyler arrived, beautiful and perfect, though the birth was complicated by stress and preeclampsia. Despite the exhaustion of new motherhood, I started building a freelance design business from my parents' spare bedroom. By the time Tyler was 2, I had saved enough for a modest 2-bedroom apartment where we could start fresh. Over the next 4 years, I grew my client list steadily, working during Tyler's preschool hours and late into the evenings. We lived simply but comfortably. Tyler grew into a sensitive, creative little boy who loved dinosaurs and could spend hours drawing elaborate prehistoric landscapes. Though money was sometimes tight, I made sure he never felt deprived. Amber, meanwhile, graduated and immediately landed a job at a prestigious financial firm through our father's connections. She quickly climbed the corporate ladder and began dating Mason Patterson, heir to a real estate development fortune. When they announced their engagement, my mother spent hours on the phone detailing the extravagant wedding plans while subtly highlighting the contrast between her daughters. Amber with her penthouse and successful fiancé versus me with my cute little apartment and single-parent struggles. The wedding invitation arrived on heavy cream cardstock with real gold foil, addressed only to me, no +1, not even acknowledging Tyler. When I called to clarify, my mother sighed. "Of course Tyler can come, Jamie, but please make sure he behaves. This is Amber's special day, and the Pattersons are very particular." What I didn't share with my status, obsessed family, was the email I'd received just days before the invitation. The American Design Association had shortlisted my work for their annual Independent Creator Award. It was prestigious recognition that could transform my small business, but I kept it to myself. Years of experience had taught me that any achievement of mine would somehow be diminished compared to Amber's accomplishments, or used to underscore how I had wasted my potential by becoming a single mother. The morning of Amber's wedding, as I helped Tyler with his first real necktie, I silently promised myself that we would use this opportunity to repair family bonds. Tyler deserved a grandmother and aunt who valued him. I would be gracious, supportive, and rise above the subtle jabs I knew would come my way. "You look so handsome," I told Tyler, smoothing his cowlick. "Will Aunt Amber like me today?" he asked, his large brown eyes serious. The question broke my heart. Even at 6, he had picked up on Amber's indifference. "Of course she will," I lied, squeezing his shoulder gently. "Everyone who meets you loves you." As we drove to the botanical garden where the ceremony would be held, I had no idea that within hours, Tyler and I would become unwilling entertainment for hundreds of strangers, or that the hand-raising from the crowd would belong to Drew Harrington, the man whose presence in my life would uncover a betrayal more calculated than I could have possibly imagined. The Patterson Botanical Garden had been transformed into a wedding fantasy with thousands of white roses, crystal chandeliers suspended from tree branches, and a transparent tent sheltering tables draped in silk. During the ceremony, Tyler had been impressively well behaved, though he whispered questions about why the flower girl got to throw petals while he had to sit still. At the reception, we were seated at the far edge of the room, at a table with distant relatives and friends who clearly ranked low in the social hierarchy. I recognized my mother's hand in the arrangement, keeping us visible enough to maintain appearances but far from the important guests. Tyler picked at his chicken fingers, the only concession to having a child at this adult's only affair, while I made polite conversation with my second cousin Grace and her husband, whose names I'd struggled to remember. "Your sister looks beautiful," Grace said, eyeing my simple blue dress that I'd splurged on at Nordstrom's semi-annual sale. "And Mason seems wonderful. Such a catch." Yes, Amber always knew what she wanted. I smiled tightly, cutting Tyler's chicken into smaller pieces as he fidgeted in his chair. "Mom, when can we go home?" he whispered. "This is boring." "Soon, buddy. We just need to stay for the cake," I promised, though I'd been wondering the same thing myself. Across the room, I spotted my mother and Amber in an intense conversation. Amber looked radiant in her designer gown, but her expression was sharp as she glanced in my direction. My mother nodded, patting Amber's hand in that conspiratorial way I recognized from childhood, the gesture that usually preceded some scheme at my expense. Before I could ponder what they might be planning, the DJ's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, the bride has prepared a special surprise." The lights dimmed throughout the reception tent, and suddenly a harsh spotlight hit our table, its glare momentarily blinding. Tyler pressed against my side, confused by the sudden attention. Amber's amplified voice cut through the murmuring crowd. "Everyone, I'd like to introduce you to my sister Jamie and her son. What's his name again? Tyler?" Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the audience as Tyler grabbed my hand. "My single, mom, sister, and her broke little boy. Aren't they just adorable? Anyone want a bid on this set? They come as a package deal." The blood drained from my face as the crowd's laughter grew louder, more confident now that the bride had clearly sanctioned this mockery. Through the blinding light, I could see Amber standing with the microphone, her perfect white smile gleaming with malice. Mason stood beside her, looking vaguely uncomfortable but making no move to stop her. My mother stepped forward, taking the microphone. "Let's start at $0, shall we?" "That seems appropriate." More laughter. Tyler's small body began to shake against mine, and I felt warm tears soaking through the sleeve of my dress. I tried to stand, to escape this nightmare, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. Hundreds of eyes watched us, amused by our humiliation. "Mom," Tyler whimpered, loud enough for the microphone to pick up, which only fueled the crowd's entertainment. I opened my mouth to speak, to defend us, but no words came. Years of conditioning to keep peace in the family, to not make scenes, paralyzed me in this moment when I needed courage most. Then movement at the back of the room caught my eye. A tall figure stepped forward, hand raised decisively. $100,000, a deep voice called out. The laughter stuttered and died. Amber's smirk faltered. As the man moved into the light, recognition hit me like a physical blow. Drew Harrington. My former classmate from the design program, the quiet, brilliant student who had gone on to build one of the most successful marketing firms on the West Coast. The man who had once asked me to coffee in our senior year, only to have me cancel when Scott called with last-minute concert tickets. Drew walked confidently to the center of the room, his tailored suit and commanding presence drawing all eyes away from Tyler and me. $100,000, he repeated. But not for what you're suggesting, Amber. He turned to face the crowd. Jamie Thompson is one of the most talented designers I've encountered in my 15 years in this industry. That's my bid to commission her for our next major campaign. The silence was absolute. Drew continued, turning to look directly at me. In fact, I've been following her work for some time. Her minimalist approach, combined with emotional resonance, is exactly what our clients have been requesting. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a business card, walking directly to our table. Up close, his eyes were just as intensely blue as I remembered, though fine lines at the corners spoke of the years that had passed. "I apologize for the unorthodox introduction," he said quietly, extending the card. "I'd love to discuss this properly when you have time." My mother hurried across the room, her predatory smile aimed at Drew. "Drew Harrington! I didn't realize you knew our Jamie. Your mother and I served on the Symphony Auxiliary together years ago." Drew acknowledged her with a cool nod, but kept his focus on me. "Mrs. Thompson, it's been a while." Tyler, still pressed against my side, looked up at this stranger who had somehow halted the humiliation. Drew crouched down to his level. "Hey there! You must be Tyler. Your mom's artwork is pretty amazing, isn't it?" Tyler nodded cautiously, his tears subsiding. The DJ, sensing the need to move past the uncomfortable moment, announced the cutting of the cake. As the crowd's attention shifted, Drew straightened. "I should let you enjoy the rest of the reception," he said. "But I meant what I said about your work. Call me next week?" Still stunned, I managed to nod. Drew turned to leave, but I found my voice at last. "Thank you," I said simply. He paused. "Don't thank me yet. I'm serious about that commission." As Drew walked away, my mother hovered nearby, her expression calculating. Amber, from across the room, glared at us both with unveiled fury. Her surprise had backfired spectacularly. I helped Tyler clean his face with a napkin, whispering reassurances that we would leave soon. My cousin Grace leaned over, eyes wide with excitement at the drama. "Do you really know Drew Harrington?" His family practically built downtown Portland. "We were in college together," I said distantly, my mind racing. "Just classmates." As promised, we left after the cake was served, Tyler's hand clutched tightly in mine. In the car, I checked Drew's business card. Embossed lettering on heavy stock, his direct line handwritten on the back. "Mom, who was that man?" Tyler asked as we pulled away from the botanical garden. "Someone I used to know," I answered carefully. "From a long time ago." What I didn't say was that Drew's unexpected appearance had felt like the first genuine moment of the day. I tucked the card into my purse, trying to ignore the small flutter of hope it had kindled. 3 days later, as I worked on a client project in my small home office, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. When I answered, Drew's voice came through, confident but warm. "Jamie, it's Drew Harrington. I hope you don't mind, but I've been hoping to reconnect with you for quite some time. When I saw your name on the wedding guest list that the Pattersons published online, I decided to attend." My breath caught. "You came to the wedding? To see me?" "I did," he admitted, though I didn't anticipate playing White Knight. "Your sister's display was unexpected." "That makes 2 of us," I said dryly, surprising myself with the ease of our conversation. "Look," Drew continued, "my offer was completely serious. Harrington Marketing needs fresh design vision, and your portfolio is exceptional. Would you consider coming in to discuss possibilities?" "No pressure, just a conversation." As I hesitated, Drew added quietly, "For what it's worth, I've regretted not being more persistent about that coffee date for 12 years. Something in his voice, a mixture of confidence and vulnerability, made me smile despite myself. "I think I could manage a conversation," I said. "For professional purposes, of course." "Of course," Drew agreed, though I could hear the smile in his voice. "Professional purposes only." As we set a date for the following week, I had no way of knowing that this moment, this reconnection with Drew Harrington, was not the fortunate coincidence it appeared to be. but rather the first move in a game that had been in motion since long before Amber's wedding day. 2 weeks after the wedding, Tyler sat across from me at our kitchen table, pushing soggy cereal around his bowl instead of eating. "Honey, you need to eat something. The bus will be here in 20 minutes, I said, trying to keep the worry from my voice. Since the wedding incident, Tyler had been uncharacteristically quiet, his usual boundless energy diminished. "I don't feel good," he mumbled. "Can I stay home today?" This was the third time he'd tried to avoid school this week. His teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, had called yesterday to tell me Tyler had spent recess sitting alone against the wall instead of playing with his friends. I put my hand on his forehead, no fever. "What doesn't feel good exactly?" Tyler shrugged, eyes downcast. My stomach and my head. I crouched beside his chair. "Is something happening at school? Did someone say something to you?" His lower lip trembled. "Jackson said, 'I'm poor and nobody wants me.' He said even my own dad didn't want me, and that's why he left." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Oh, Tyler." I pulled him into a hug, feeling his small body shake with suppressed tears. "Jackson is wrong. So wrong. But Aunt Amber said we're broke. And Grandma wanted to sell us for $0. His voice was muffled against my shoulder. "Are we really poor, Mom? Is that why Dad left?" I pulled back to look him in the eyes, anger and heartbreak warring within me. "Listen to me. Your father left because he wasn't ready to be a dad. That was his mistake, not yours. Never yours. And we are not poor. We have everything we need. Our apartment, food, your school, each other. Some people have bigger houses or fancier cars, but that doesn't make them better or happier." Tyler wiped his nose with his sleeve. "But why did Aunt Amber say those things? Why did everyone laugh at us? How could I explain adult cruelty to a 6-year-old? Sometimes grown, ups say mean things when they're feeling bad about themselves. It wasn't right, and it wasn't true. Will we have to see Aunt Amber again soon?" The fear in his voice broke my heart. "No," I said firmly. "Not for a long time." I helped Tyler finish getting ready for school, writing a note to Mrs. Reynolds asking if she could keep an eye on him and any potential bullying. After watching his yellow school bus pull away, I returned to our apartment and finally allowed myself the rage I'd been suppressing. I pulled out my phone and dialed my mother. When she answered with a cheerful "Good morning, dear," I cut straight to the point. "Tyler is being bullied at school because of what happened at the wedding. He thinks we're unwanted and worthless." A pause. Then my mother's defensive tone. "Jamie, it was just a bit of fun. You're being oversensitive as usual." "Fun?" My voice shook. "You publicly humiliated a 6-year-old child, your grandson." "Oh, please. He's a child. He'll forget all about it in a week. And honestly, Jamie, maybe this is a wake-up call. If you'd made better choices—" "Stop," I interrupted. "Just stop. Tyler and I won't be at Sunday dinner this week, or any week in the foreseeable future." "You're overreacting." "What about family? What about—" I ended the call and blocked her number, then did the same with Amber's. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in years I felt clarity. The fog of obligation and hope for family approval had lifted, replaced by a fierce determination to protect Tyler from their toxicity. I spent the morning throwing myself into work, completing 2 client projects ahead of schedule. At noon, my phone rang with a number I now recognized. Drew Harrington. "Jamie, I hope I'm not interrupting." His voice was warm through the speaker. "Not at all. Just finishing up some client work. Listen, I know we're scheduled to meet officially next week, but I was wondering if you might be available for lunch today. There's a project I'd love your initial thoughts on." I hesitated, glancing at my calendar. "I need to pick up Tyler from school at 3. "The restaurant is 5 minutes from your apartment," Drew said, then quickly added, "I looked it up. Not in a stalker way, just efficient planning." The comment surprised a laugh out of me. "Efficient planning, huh?" "One of my better qualities," he replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. 2 hours later, I sat across from Drew at an upscale bistro I'd passed many times but never entered. He'd aged well since college, his dark hair now threaded with silver at the temples, laugh lines framing eyes that remained intensely observant. "Thank you for meeting on short notice," Drew said as we settled with our menus. "How have you been, really? It's been too long." "It's been quite a journey," I admitted. "Single motherhood wasn't exactly in my 5-year plan after graduation." Drew nodded. "Life rarely follows our careful plans. But from what I've seen of your work, you've created something impressive despite the challenges." As we talked, conversation flowed more easily than I'd expected. Drew spoke about building his agency from the ground up, the challenges of managing creative teams, and his vision for more meaningful marketing campaigns. "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you," he said as our meals arrived. "Your approach finding emotional truth in simple images, it's exactly what our clients are asking for now. People are tired of slick, empty advertising. They want authenticity." "Authenticity is expensive for brands," I observed. "It requires vulnerability." Drew's eyes lit up. "Exactly. That's precisely the insight I'm looking for." He pulled out his tablet and showed me preliminary ideas for a campaign for a children's hospital. "What would you do with this?" Almost without thinking, I began suggesting approaches, sketching concepts on a napkin. Drew watched intently, occasionally asking questions that pushed my thinking in new directions. By the time we finished lunch, the napkin was covered in ideas, and Drew was visibly excited. "This is brilliant, Jamie. Exactly what I was hoping for." He carefully tucked the napkin into his portfolio. "I'd like to formally offer you a position with Harrington Marketing. Senior designer, flexible hours, so you can continue your freelance work while you transition. We can work around Tyler's schedule." The offer was unexpected and significantly more generous than I'd anticipated. That's very tempting, but I'd need to think about it. Changes affect Tyler deeply, and after everything that's happened recently, Drew nodded immediately. "Of course, take all the time you need." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small gift bag. "This is for Tyler, by the way. A little dinosaur field guide I thought he might enjoy. You mentioned he loves them." The thoughtfulness of the gesture caught me off guard. "That's really kind of you." "I remember what it was like being a shy kid who preferred dinosaurs to people," Drew said with a wry smile. "Some days I still do." As we walked out of the restaurant, Drew's phone rang. He glanced at it and frowned slightly. "I need to take this." "But Jamie, think about the offer. I believe we could create something special together." That night, after Tyler had fallen asleep clutching his new dinosaur book, I sat on the couch considering Drew's proposal. The salary was nearly twice what I currently made, with benefits that would ease the constant financial tightrope walk of self-employment. The hours were flexible, the creative freedom substantial. More than that, Drew's interest in my work felt genuine, his respect for my talent unforced. After years of my family diminishing my choices, his recognition was intoxicating. My phone chimed with a text. Unknown number, but the content made the sender obvious. "Jamie, your father and I are very hurt by your reaction. Family should forgive. Amber feels terrible and wants to make amends. Sunday dinner at 5? Love, Mom." I deleted the message without responding. Another text arrived immediately after, this one from an unknown number. "Hey sis, Mom said you're upset. Whatever. Just for your information, your new friend Drew isn't as great as you think. Ask him about the Westlake project. Just looking out for you, Amber." I stared at the screen, confusion and suspicion stirring. How did Amber know about Drew? And what was the Westlake project? Before I could ponder further, a final text arrived, this one from Drew. "Forgot to mention I've been researching your work for the past 6 months. Your Bloom Organic campaign caught my eye and I've been following your portfolio since. Hope that's not too forward. Just wanted to be transparent. Looking forward to your decision." 6 months of research? That was long before the wedding. A small voice in my head whispered caution, but I pushed it aside. After years of struggle, things were finally looking up. I wasn't going to let my sister's jealousy or my own insecurities sabotage this opportunity. I typed a response to Drew. "Tyler loved the book. Thank you. And yes, I'd like to accept your offer. When can I start?" His reply came almost immediately. "Wonderful news. Monday works if that suits you." I'll email the paperwork tomorrow. Looking forward to our collaboration, Jamie. I smiled, a weight lifting from my shoulders. This was a fresh start for Tyler and me, a chance to build something new, away from the shadow of family drama and financial stress. What I couldn't see then was that I was walking straight into a web that had been carefully constructed around me, one where Drew Harrington's interest in my work went far beyond professional admiration, and where the connections between him and my family ran deeper and darker than I could have possibly imagined. The open office space of Harrington Marketing hummed with creative energy. Sunlight streamed through floor, to ceiling windows, illuminating designers hunched over sleek monitors and account managers engaged in animated conversations. After 2 weeks at the firm, I still felt a thrill walking through the glass doors each morning. Jamie, there you are. Emily, my assigned assistant, hurried toward me with a tablet in hand. Young, sharp, and refreshingly direct, she had quickly become my guide to navigating the corporate waters. The mock-ups for Sunfield Hospital are getting rave reviews from the executive team. Drew wants to present them to the client next week. Pride warmed my chest as I set down my coffee. That's great news. Any specific feedback? Emily glanced around and lowered her voice. Just between us? Lacey in accounts says she's never seen Drew this excited about a campaign. You're making quite the impression. The work had been challenging but fulfilling, creating marketing materials that captured the warmth and compassion of pediatric healthcare without exploiting emotional vulnerability. Drew had given me surprising creative freedom, incorporating nearly all of my suggestions. The creative meetings in 30 minutes, Emily continued. Oh, and your sister called the office line. Twice. My smile faltered. My sister? Amber Patterson? She said it was urgent family business. Emily raised an eyebrow. Want me to block her calls? Yes, please, I said, surprised by how calmly I could now enforce this boundary. In the 2 weeks since starting at Harrington Marketing, I'd established a new routine. Tyler was adjusting well to after school care 3 days a week, even making new friends there. The other 2 days, I worked from home, maintaining my freelance clients while gradually transitioning projects to the firm. Drew had been nothing but supportive, often stopping by my office to check in or share ideas. Yesterday, he'd brought Tyler a model dinosaur for his collection when dropping off contract documents at my apartment. Tyler had been initially shy but quickly warmed up when Drew demonstrated the realistic roaring sound effects. He's nice, Tyler had whispered after Drew left. He knows all the dinosaur names. The moment had filled me with complicated emotions, joy at seeing Tyler connect with a male figure, but also caution born from past disappointments. Now, as I settled at my desk to prepare for the creative meeting, my computer pinged with a calendar invitation. Lunch, 12:30, Drew Harrington. The note read simply, "Good news to share." When I arrived at the small conference room at 12:30, I was surprised to find not just Drew, but also Richard Keller, the firm's legal counsel, and Marissa Chen, the financial director. Jamie, thank you for joining us, Drew said, standing to greet me. I wanted to share some exciting developments. Richard slid a folder across the table. We've been impressed with your contributions, particularly the Sunfield Hospital campaign. The board has approved accelerating our original plan. I opened the folder to find acquisition paperwork for my freelance business, Thompson Design. The proposed amount made my breath catch a figure that would eliminate all my financial worries in one stroke. We'd like to bring your client list and portfolio fully under the Harrington umbrella, Drew explained. Your existing clients would receive preferred rates for the first year, and you'd receive this payment plus a percentage of their ongoing business. This is substantial, I managed, scanning the terms. Marissa nodded. Your design approach fits perfectly with our growth strategy. The boutique clients you've cultivated are exactly the direction we want to expand into. I hesitated, something tugging at my instincts. This is very generous, but I'd like some time to review the details and speak with my clients. Some of them chose to work with me specifically because I'm independent. Of course, Drew smiled, though something flickered in his eyes. Take the weekend to think it over. We can discuss any concerns on Monday. That evening, I spread the contract across my kitchen table after Tyler was asleep, reading every clause carefully. The financial terms were excellent, but something didn't sit right. I'd built my client relationships over years of hard work. The personal touch and direct communication were what many of them valued most. My phone rang, displaying my mother's number. Though I'd unblocked her the previous week after multiple apologetic voicemails, I'd not yet returned her calls. Sighing, I answered. "Hello, Mom." "Jamie, finally. I've been so worried." Her voice had that familiar blend of relief and reproach. "How are you and Tyler?" "We're fine," I said carefully. "Both doing well." "I'm so glad to hear that. Listen, I wanted to apologize again for the wedding. It got out of hand, and, well, Amber feels just terrible." I doubted that very much, but said nothing. "Actually, that's partly why I'm calling. Your father and I would love to have Tyler for the weekend. Give you a break. Amber mentioned you're working at Drew Harrington's firm now. You must be busy. We could take Tyler to the Natural History Museum, make it up to him for the misunderstanding." The timing seemed suspiciously convenient. "Thanks, but we have plans." "Oh, but we've already bought tickets for Saturday. Tyler loves dinosaurs, doesn't he? And your father picked up that new game system all the boys want. Please, Jamie, let us make amends." The manipulation was obvious but effective. Tyler had been asking about visiting the museum for months, and I'd been putting it off due to the expense. And if they were genuinely trying to repair the relationship, "I'll think about it," I conceded. "I'll let you know tomorrow." Friday morning brought another surprise. As I settled at my desk, Emily rushed in, eyes wide. "You need to see this," she whispered, sliding a tablet toward me. On the screen was a confidential company presentation titled Strategic Acquisitions, Q3 Targets. Listed prominently was Thompson Design, along with 5 other small creative agencies. The document was dated 3 months ago, well before the wedding, before Drew had reconnected with me. "Where did you get this?" I asked, my stomach dropping. "I was organizing the digital archive and found it by accident," Emily explained. "Jamie, there's more. Look at the projected revenue slide." I swiped to find a breakdown of anticipated profits from the Sunfield Hospital campaign, $15 million in total projected billings, with a prominent note: design acquisition cost, 150 kelvins. J. Thompson equals 1% of projected value. 1%. My work, my creative vision for this campaign was expected to generate $15 million, and they were offering me a mere 1% of its value. "There's a strategy meeting about this presentation Monday morning," Emily added quietly. "I wasn't supposed to see the agenda, but I thought you should know." I thanked her, mind racing. I needed to understand exactly what was happening before confronting Drew. Pulling out my phone, I texted my mother. "Tyler can stay with you this weekend. I'll drop him off Friday evening and pick him up Sunday afternoon." Her reply was immediate and enthusiastic. Too enthusiastic. That evening, I packed Tyler's overnight bag, carefully reviewing rules and emergency contacts with my parents. My father seemed genuinely happy to have Tyler, showing him the new video game system already set up in the guest room. My mother was effusive, promising museum visits and homemade cookies. "You look tired, dear," she observed as I prepared to leave. "New job keeping you busy?" "Very," I replied neutrally. "I appreciate you taking Tyler. He's been looking forward to the museum." "We're happy to help," my mother smiled. "You focus on your work. That big hospital project Drew mentioned sounds important." I froze. "Drew mentioned it to you? When?" "Oh, just in passing. He called to ask about your favorite flowers, wanted to surprise you with an arrangement for your office. Such a thoughtful man." The casual comment sent alarm bells ringing. Drew had been in contact with my mother? About me? "Well, I should go," I said, keeping my voice light. "Lots of work to catch up on this weekend." Instead of going home, I drove straight to the office. At 7:30 on Friday evening, the building was nearly empty. Using my keycard, I accessed my office and began searching my computer for more information about the Sunfield campaign and the acquisition strategy. Most files were restricted, but I found email threads discussing integration of Thompson assets dating back 4 months. In one exchange, Drew had written, Her Bloom Organic campaign demonstrated exactly the aesthetic we need. Research her client list and identify potential conflicts with existing accounts. They had been planning this for months, long before the wedding coincidence. A sound in the hallway made me look up. Drew stood in my doorway, suit jacket gone, tie loosened. "Jamie, I didn't expect to find you here on a Friday night." His voice was carefully neutral. "Just catching up on some research," I replied, closing the email window. "What about you?" "Same," he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Everything okay with the acquisition proposal? Any questions I can answer?" I forced a casual tone. "Actually, yes. I was wondering about the Westlake project. Amber mentioned it." Drew's face changed subtly, a tightening around the eyes, a slight clench of his jaw. "Amber mentioned Westlake to you? Interesting. It was just a standard development deal from a few years back. Nothing relevant to our current work." "I see," I nodded, gathering my things. "Well, I should head home. Have a good weekend, Drew." "You too, Jamie. We'll talk Monday about the acquisition? I'm hoping for good news." "Absolutely," I smiled, the expression feeling foreign on my face. "I'm sure we'll have plenty to discuss." As I drove home, pieces were falling into place. Drew's sudden appearance at the wedding, his knowledge of Tyler's dinosaur obsession, the careful cultivation of my trust, none of it had been coincidental. The question was, why go to such lengths? What made my small design business worth this elaborate scheme? And, most disturbing of all, how was my sister connected to Drew Harrington, and what exactly was the Westlake project she wanted me to know about? I pulled into my empty apartment building's garage, the silence of a weekend without Tyler stretching before me. Instead of dread, I felt a cold determination forming. I would use these 2 days to discover exactly what game was being played and who was orchestrating it. I didn't yet know that while I was investigating Drew, someone else was in my parents' home, searching through my workspace there, accessing files I'd believed were secure. The truth was far more complicated and disturbing than corporate opportunism. It was personal, calculated, and had been in motion since long before Drew raised his hand at my sister's wedding. Saturday morning dawned with a sense of purpose. After a restless night piecing together fragments of information, I had decided to dig deeper into Drew's company and its connection to my sister. The quiet apartment felt like a war room as I spread notebooks across the dining table and booted up my laptop. My first search was simple: Drew Harrington Westlake Project. The results were sparse, but revealing a small mention in a business journal about a proposed luxury condominium development that had stalled 3 years ago due to financial irregularities and investor concerns. Nothing specific about what those irregularities might have been. Next, I searched Amber Thompson Drew Harrington, nothing. But when I tried Amber Stevens Drew Harrington, my sister's maiden name, I found a university newspaper photo from 12 years ago, business school gala. In the background of a group shot, barely visible but unmistakable, were Amber and Drew standing close together, his hand at the small of her back. My sister and Drew had known each other in college the same time he and I had been in adjacent programs. The coincidence seemed increasingly unlikely. I dove into professional directories, social media archives, anything that might connect the dots. After 3 hours, my eyes burning from screen glare, I had assembled a troubling timeline. Drew and Amber had both attended business courses at the same university where I studied design. Based on tagged photos and event mentions, they appeared to have dated for at least a semester. Most concerning was a business plan competition they had entered as partners for a marketing and design agency concept. A concept remarkably similar to what Drew had eventually built without her. My phone rang, startling me from my research. Tyler's face lit up my screen, my parents' number. "Hey, sweetie, are you having fun with Grandma and Grandpa?" I asked, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. "Mom, we're at the Dinosaur Museum, and Grandpa bought me a fossil kit. A real one with tools and everything." His excitement warmed my heart despite my concerns. "That's wonderful, buddy. Are you being good for Grandma?" "Uh-huh. Aunt Amber is here, too. She brought me a dinosaur book." My blood ran cold. "Aunt Amber is there now. At the museum?" "Yeah." She says hi. "Oh, And she showed me how to use her iPad to draw dinosaurs. She said I'm really good, like you. That's great, Tyler. Can I talk to Grandma for a minute? My mother's voice came on the line, falsely bright. Jamie, dear, Tyler's having a wonderful time. The museum has a special T-Rex exhibit. You didn't mention Amber would be joining you, I interrupted. Oh, it was a last-minute thing. She wanted to spend time with Tyler, make amends. Isn't that what you wanted? The manipulation was so transparent it almost made me laugh. Mom, please put Amber on the phone. A pause, then my sister's voice, sugary sweet. Hey, sis, Tyler's such a doll, so smart. What are you doing, Amber? Spending time with my nephew. Trying to be a better aunt, like you've always wanted. And it has nothing to do with Drew Harrington or the fact that I'm looking into the acquisition offer. A slight hesitation. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, Tyler wants to show me something. Gotta go. The call ended. I immediately tried calling back, but no one answered. I sent a text. Bringing Tyler home early. We'll pick him up at 4 p.m. today. My mother replied instantly. Don't be silly. We have tickets to the children's theater tomorrow. Tyler's having a wonderful time. Before I could respond, my phone chimed with an email notification. From my work account, sent to my personal email. A draft of the Sunfield Hospital campaign I'd been working on, except with significant changes I hadn't made, and missing several key elements of my original design. The message was from Drew. Jamie team made some adjustments to your Sunfield concept. Let me know your thoughts before Monday's client presentation. Changes align better with overall strategy. The adjustments had stripped away everything distinctive about my approach, leaving a sanitized corporate version that could have come from any mid-tier agency. But more importantly, I hadn't shared the complete design files outside my personal workspace. The only copy existed on my home computer and a backup drive I kept at my parents' house for safekeeping. A backup drive that was currently in the same house as my sister. I grabbed my keys and was halfway to the door when my phone rang again. Emily from the office. Jamie, I'm sorry to bother you on weekend, but something weird is happening. There's an all-hands meeting scheduled for Monday morning about the Thompson integration. And I overheard Marissa telling someone they're already contacting your client list to discuss transition plans. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as I pulled out of the parking garage. They're contacting my clients? Already? Yes. And there's more. The Sunfield campaign is being credited to the Harrington team in press materials going out Monday. Your name isn't mentioned anywhere. They were moving faster than I'd anticipated, attempting to secure my clients and claim my work before the acquisition was finalized. It was aggressive and potentially unethical, but not necessarily illegal if carefully executed. Thanks, Emily. I owe you one. Just be careful. Something feels off about all this. I drove to my parents' home with a singular focus, mentally cataloging every interaction with Drew and Amber over recent weeks. The manipulation had been skillful. Drew offering the job, building trust, showing interest in Tyler, my mother suddenly pushing for weekend grandparenting time, Amber's unexpected appearance at the museum. All orchestrated to keep me distracted while they accessed my designs and client information. When I arrived at my parents' suburban home, I was surprised to find only my father and Tyler there, assembling the new fossil kit at the kitchen table. Jamie, weren't you coming tomorrow? My father looked genuinely confused. Where's Mom? And Amber? I asked, scanning the house for signs of them. Your mother went shopping. Amber left about an hour ago, said she had an appointment. He frowned. Is something wrong? I headed straight for the guest room, where I kept my backup drive, Tyler trailing behind me with questions I barely registered. The small fireproof box in the closet was unlocked, the drive missing. Dad, did Amber go into this room at all? He thought for a moment. She used the computer in there this morning. Said she needed to check her email. Why? I didn't answer, instead kneeling to Tyler's level. Buddy, did Aunt Amber ask you any questions about my work or my computer at home? Tyler nodded slowly. She asked if I knew your passwords. I told her you keep them in the dinosaur book by your bed. His eyes widened. Was that wrong? My password notebook disguised as a children's dinosaur encyclopedia with handwritten notes in the margins. clever enough to fool a casual observer, but not someone specifically looking for it. "It's okay, Tyler. You didn't do anything wrong." I smoothed his hair. "But we need to go home now. Can you get your things?" "But the theater tomorrow. We'll go another time. I promise." My father watched in confusion as I helped Tyler pack. "Jamie, what's going on? Your mother will be upset if you take him early." "I'm sure she will be," I said flatly. "Dad, has Mom mentioned anything about Drew Harrington to you? Or Amber's relationship with him?" He looked uncomfortable. "Just that he's your new boss, and that he's from a good family." "Did you know he and Amber dated in college?" Surprise crossed his face. "No, I didn't." He hesitated. "Jamie, there's something you should know. Amber's been in some financial trouble recently. The wedding was. Well, Mason's family paid for most of it. There was some issue with an investment she made." A new piece of the puzzle clicked into place. "What kind of investment?" "I don't know the details, but she was very upset about 6 months ago. Your mother helped her with a loan from our retirement savings. 6 months ago, right around when Drew had supposedly first noticed my work and begun researching me. On the drive home, I called a college friend who had become a corporate attorney. After explaining the situation in broad strokes, I asked what options I had. "First, don't sign anything," she advised. "If they've contacted your clients without permission, that's tortious interference. Document everything. And check your contracts carefully, both with your clients and whatever you signed with Harrington." "What about the stolen designs?" "Harder to prove, unless you have clear documentation of the timeline and ownership. Do you have dated backups? Registered copyrights?" I had some protections in place, but nothing that would stand up against a determined corporate legal team without a fight. When we arrived home, I found our apartment door slightly ajar. Someone had been inside. Tyler clutched my hand as we entered cautiously. Nothing seemed obviously disturbed, but when I checked my home office, I found my computer on, screen glowing with an open email client I hadn't accessed in days. "Tyler, pack an overnight bag. We're going to stay with Aunt Grace tonight." As Tyler gathered his things, I quickly backed up critical files to a secure cloud server, changed all my passwords, and emailed key clients warning them about potential contact from Harrington Marketing. I wasn't going down without a fight. We were almost to the door when it swung open, revealing Drew Harrington, holding a key I hadn't given him. "Jamie," he said calmly, as if his presence in my home was perfectly normal. "We need to talk." Tyler moved behind me. "How did you get that key?" I demanded. "Your mother thought I might need to drop off work documents while you were away." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "She's very supportive of your career. My mother gave you a key to my apartment." The betrayal stung, but didn't surprise me anymore. "Why are you really here, Drew?" He glanced at Tyler, then back to me. "I think we should discuss this privately. The acquisition offer won't be available after Monday, and I'd hate for you to make a decision based on misunderstandings. Misunderstandings like you and my sister having a history, or like the Westlake project that fell apart. Or perhaps you mean the misunderstanding where you plan to take credit for my work while paying me pennies on the dollar for its actual value." Drew's expression hardened. "You've been talking to Amber. That's disappointing. She's not exactly a reliable narrator of our past. Get out of my apartment, now, or I'm calling the police." Drew held up his hands in a placating gesture. "There's no need for threats. I came to offer you a better deal. The board has approved a higher acquisition price, double the original offer. I'm not interested. Now move aside." As I tried to pass him, Drew's hand closed around my arm. "Jamie, don't be foolish. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Your work will reach audiences you could never access independently. Isn't that what you've always wanted?" I yanked my arm free. "What I've always wanted is to be valued for my work, not exploited for it. Now get out." For a moment, I thought he might refuse, but then he stepped back. "Think carefully about your next move, Jamie. The industry isn't kind to designers who develop a difficult reputation." After he left, I locked the door and called Grace to arrange our emergency stay. As I helped Tyler gather his dinosaurs, my phone rang with Amber's number. "Against my better judgment," I answered. "Jamie, don't do anything stupid," she said without preamble. "Drew told me you're being difficult about the acquisition." "Why do you care, Amber? What's your stake in this?" A pause, then a laugh that chilled me. "You really haven't figured it out yet? Maybe you should ask your precious Drew about Portland Capital Partners and who really funded his company's early days." Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at the phone, pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. Portland Capital Partners, the investment firm where Amber had started her career. The money trail, the connection between my sister and Drew, the sudden interest in my work, it all led back to one inescapable conclusion. This wasn't just business. It was personal, and it had been from the beginning. My cousin Grace's guest room was small but comfortable, with cheerful yellow walls and a fold-out couch where Tyler now slept peacefully, exhausted from the emotional day. I sat cross-legged on the floor beside him, laptop balanced on my knees, piecing together the final elements of the puzzle that had become my life. Portland Capital Partners' website listed their notable early investments, including Harrington Marketing Solutions Series A funding, 2015. The same year, Amber had joined the firm as a junior associate. Further searching revealed a Portland Business Journal article from 3 years ago. Westlake Development stalls amid funding concerns. The piece mentioned Portland Capital as the primary investor, with quotes from project partner Amber Stevens. The development had apparently collapsed when the main architectural firm pulled out due to creative differences and payment issues. The unnamed firm had then sued for intellectual property infringement. The pattern was unmistakable. Drew and Amber had a history of appropriating creative work, repackaging it under the Harrington brand, and cutting out the original creators. And now, I was their latest target. My phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "We should talk. Not about the acquisition. About Amber. Meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m., Riverside Park bench near the duck pond. Come alone, Drew." I had no intention of meeting Drew alone, especially after his earlier behavior at my apartment. Instead, I forwarded the message to my attorney friend with a simple question. "Advice?" Her response came quickly. "Document everything. Record if legal in your state. Meet in public only. Bring a witness if possible." Oregon was a one-party consent state for recordings. I had that legal protection at least. Another text arrived, this one from my mother. "Jamie, we're very disappointed you took Tyler early. Drew came by looking for you. He's such a nice man, so concerned about your future. Please call me." The casual mention of Drew visiting my parents' home, likely to retrieve the backup drive Amber had stolen, sent a fresh wave of anger through me. How long had they all been coordinating behind my back? Had the wedding humiliation been part of the plan too designed to make me vulnerable to Drew's timely rescue? Sunday morning, I asked Grace to watch Tyler and drove to Riverside Park, arriving 20 minutes early to survey the area. The park was busy with weekend joggers and families, providing plenty of witnesses if things went wrong. I chose a bench with clear sight lines and set my phone to record, tucking it into my jacket pocket. Drew arrived precisely at 9, wearing casual clothes instead of his usual suit jeans and a sweater that reminded me of the graduate student I'd known years ago. He sat beside me without greeting, his gaze fixed on the pond. "Thank you for coming," he said finally. "I expected you might ignore my message after yesterday." "I almost did. Why am I here, Drew?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed genuinely weary. "Because you deserve to know the truth before you make your next move. And because what Amber told you yesterday is only part of the story." "I'm listening." Amber and I dated briefly in college. We entered a business plan competition with a concept that became the foundation for what is now Harrington Marketing. When we graduated, I wanted to build the company slowly, properly. Amber wanted shortcuts, family connections, leveraged investments. We disagreed, split up. I thought that was the end. He paused, watching a family of ducks glide across the water. 3 years later, I'd built Harrington Marketing into a small but growing firm. Out of nowhere, Amber reappeared as a representative of Portland Capital. They offered funding when I desperately needed it to expand. The terms seemed reasonable. I didn't realize until later that she'd structured the deal to give her effective control of major decisions while keeping her involvement hidden from me. "And you expect me to believe you were an innocent victim?" I asked skeptically. "Not innocent, no. Naive, perhaps." His smile was bitter. "For the next 5 years, I built the creative reputation of the company, while Amber and her associates steered the financial side. Then came Westlake, a development project where we were hired to create the marketing campaign. The architecture firm involved had this brilliant young designer with innovative concepts. Amber pushed to acquire their work rather than partner fairly. When they refused, things got ugly. "The lawsuit," I murmured. Drew nodded. "Which we settled quietly with a non-disclosure agreement. But it was a wake-up call. I began working to buy out Portland Capital's interest in my company. Amber fought me every step of the way. What does any of this have to do with me?" Drew turned to face me directly. "6 months ago, I finally secured the financing to remove Portland Capital from Harrington Marketing. The paperwork was being finalized when Amber approached me with one last proposition. Her shares in exchange for acquiring a small design firm she'd been monitoring, one with a unique aesthetic that would fit our growth strategy." My stomach dropped. "Me firm?" "Yes. At first I refused. Then I saw your portfolio and understood what Amber had recognized your talent is exceptional, Jamie. I thought I could structure a fair deal, bring you in as a true partner rather than an acquisition target. I convinced myself that everyone would benefit. So the wedding, the spotlight, my humiliation, that was all part of your plan. The betrayal cut deep, despite my suspicions." "No." Drew's denial seemed genuinely distressed. "That was Amber's improvisation. I attended the wedding hoping to meet you professionally, assess whether a partnership could work. What she did, what your mother enabled it, was cruel and unnecessary. My reaction was genuine." I laughed humorlessly. "Yet you capitalized on it beautifully. White knight to the rescue." "I won't deny taking advantage of the opening. In business, timing is everything." He had the decency to look ashamed. "But my interest in your work is genuine, Jamie. The offer to join Harrington Marketing was sincere. While you simultaneously planned to strip my designs of attribution and contact my clients behind my back," Drew winced. "That was Amber's doing. She still has allies in the company, including Marissa in finance. They moved ahead with the original acquisition plan while I was trying to restructure it into a partnership. And I'm supposed to believe you had no knowledge of this? That poor Drew is just being manipulated by mean Amber again?" The sarcasm in my voice was cutting. "I'm not asking for your sympathy or forgiveness," he said quietly. "Just your understanding of what you're up against. Amber won't stop with this attempt. The wedding humiliation, the job offer, the acquisition, if you reject them, she'll find another angle of attack." "Why? What did I ever do to her?" Drew hesitated. "It's not what you did. It's what you represent. Amber has spent her life in competition with you for your parents' approval, for recognition. In her mind, you've always had the one thing she truly wanted." "Which is what, exactly?" "I'm a struggling single mom with a small business, while she just married into one of the wealthiest families in Portland." "Authenticity," Drew said simply. "Talent that comes naturally rather than through calculation. Your parents might have indulged Amber, but they respected you. Everyone does. Your work speaks for itself. Amber has always needed connections, leverage, manipulation to achieve her goals. I absorbed this, finding it both plausible and irrelevant to my current predicament. Even if everything you're saying is true, it doesn't change the fact that you and my sister conspired to appropriate my business and creative work." "You're right." Drew stood, hands in his pockets. "Which is why I've made a decision. I'm withdrawing the acquisition offer and instructing my team to cease all contact with your clients. The Sunfield campaign will credit you as lead designer if you'll still allow us to use your concepts." The unexpected concession caught me off guard. "Why would you do that?" "Because talent like yours should be nurtured, not exploited. And because I've spent 10 years letting Amber's methods contaminate my company's ethics, it's time to break that pattern." He handed me an envelope. This contains documentation of Amber's involvement in Portland Capital and their connection to Harrington Marketing. Also evidence of the confidential plans regarding your business. Use it however you see fit. I took the envelope cautiously. You realize this could damage your company significantly. Yes. His expression was resigned. But continuing on this path would destroy it from within. Sometimes the only way forward is to cauterize the wound, however painful. As Drew turned to leave, a familiar voice called out, "How touching! A confession and a sacrifice." Amber stood on the path before us, designer sunglasses pushed up into her perfectly styled hair, expression coldly furious. Beside her stood my mother, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Amber," Drew acknowledged stiffly, "this doesn't concern you anymore." She laughed, the sound brittle. "Of course it does. Portland Capital still owns 15% of Harrington Marketing, enough to make things very difficult if you decide to play White Knight again." My mother stepped forward. "Jamie, honey, we need to talk. This has all gone too far. Drew has made you a generous offer. It's time to be reasonable." "Reasonable?" I stood, anger crystallizing into something cold and focused. "Like you were reasonable when you helped auction off your grandson at a wedding? Or when you gave Drew a key to my apartment? Or when you let Amber access my backup files in your home?" She had the grace to look ashamed. "I was trying to help. Drew's company could give you security, a real career instead of struggling alone." "I wasn't struggling. My business was growing, my clients were loyal, my son was happy. The only problem in my life was my family's constant undermining of my choices." Amber's smile was sharp. "So self-righteous, always the victim, never the villain. Did Drew tell you what's really at stake here? Your little design portfolio is just the tip of the iceberg." "What are you talking about?" I clutched the envelope tighter. "Your grandfather's trust fund for Tyler," my mother blurted, then covered her mouth as Amber shot her a warning look. Ice formed in my stomach. Tyler's trust fund? The one that becomes accessible for his education when he turns 18? "The very same," Amber confirmed smoothly. "Currently valued at just over $2 million. As co-trustees, Mother and I have certain discretionary powers, particularly regarding investments." The implication was clear. They had been planning to use Tyler's trust fund, his future, as leverage in their business machinations. Possibly had already begun the process. "You would steal from a 6-year-old child? Your own nephew?" The concept was so appalling I could barely form the words. "Not steal," my mother protested weakly. "Invest in Drew's company. It would still be Tyler's money eventually, just two working harder in the meantime." Drew looked genuinely shocked. "Diane, you can't be serious. That would be fraud," I finished. "It would be fraud, and a violation of fiduciary duty, both criminal offenses." Amber's composure slipped slightly. "Only if proven. And who would believe you over us? The unstable single mother with financial troubles against a respected investment professional and a devoted grandmother?" "I would," Drew said quietly. "And I have documentation of discussions where you proposed using trust funds for unauthorized investments in my company. I rejected those proposals, but I kept the records." Amber's face contorted with fury. "You're bluffing, and even if you're not, your company would never survive the scandal." "Maybe not," Drew conceded, "but some things matter more than business success." My mother stepped toward me, hands outstretched pleadingly. "Jamie, please. We can work this out as a family. No need for lawyers or accusations." I stepped back from her reach. "We stopped being a family the moment you decided Tyler and I were acceptable collateral damage for Amber's schemes. I'm done." I turned to walk away, the envelope of evidence secure in my hand. Amber called after me, her voice now tinged with desperation. "You walk away now, you'll regret it. I can make sure you never work in this industry again." I turned back briefly, a calm certainty settling over me. "No, Amber. You can't. Not anymore." As I reached my car, I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording. 3 voices clearly documented discussing trust fund manipulation, acquisition plans, and attempts at professional sabotage. more than enough to protect Tyler's future and my career from their machinations. I had one more call to make before picking up Tyler from Grace's home. To William Donovan, my favorite professor from design school, now head of the department and, well, connected throughout the industry. William, it's Jamie Thompson. I need your advice on something important. How do you feel about becoming a business partner? The plan forming in my mind was risky but clear. I would not just defend against Amber and my mother's schemes. I would build something stronger and more successful from the ashes of their betrayal. Not out of vengeance, but because Tyler and I deserved better than to live in fear of their next attack. What I couldn't know then was that the evidence Drew had provided would prove even more valuable than I imagined, or that the recording from the park would become key evidence in a case that would ultimately sever the toxic family ties that had bound me for too long. The path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free to forge my own future on my own terms, with allies who valued me for my talent rather than what they could take from me. 6 months later, I stood in the entrance of our new office space, a renovated industrial loft with exposed brick walls and towering windows that flooded the open floor plan with natural light. The Thompson-Donovan Design Collective logo, a simple interlocking T and D in steel blue, hung above the reception desk where Emily, now our office manager, greeted a potential client with professional warmth. "They're waiting for you in the conference room," she informed me, handing over a tablet with the morning's agenda. "The Westside Children's Hospital team is very excited about the concept boards." I nodded, smoothing the lapel of my new blazer, a far cry from the casual work, from home attire that had been my uniform for years. "Thanks, Emily. How's the new designer settling in?" "Ryan's great, already collaborating with the web team on the symphony project." "Oh, and Professor Donovan called. The students' portfolios for the mentorship program are ready for review whenever you have time." The path to this moment had been both challenging and exhilarating. After that confrontation in the park, I had moved quickly. William Donovan, my former professor and mentor, had immediately recognized the value of my proposal, a design collective that would pair established professionals with promising students and recent graduates, creating a talent pipeline while providing affordable design services to nonprofit organizations. With William's industry connections and my client relationships, we secured start-up funding within weeks, legitimate investment with transparent terms and fair equity distribution. Several of my loyal clients followed me to the new venture, and the Sunfield Hospital campaign, credited properly to me, had attracted positive industry attention. The legal fallout had been significant but necessary. With my attorney's guidance, I had filed for full control of Tyler's trust fund, submitting the recorded conversation and Drew's documentation as evidence. The court had not only granted my petition but had initiated an investigation into my mother and Amber's financial activities that revealed additional improprieties. Drew had faced his own reckoning. Harrington Marketing underwent a major restructuring, with several board members and executives, including Marissa, resigning amid the scandal. Drew had reached out once, through his attorney, to express remorse and offer a settlement for the attempted appropriation of my designs. I had accepted not out of forgiveness, but because the funds would help build something positive from the experience. Amber and Mason's marriage had not survived the public embarrassment. According to the society pages, she had moved to Chicago to pursue new opportunities as far from Portland and the whispers that followed her as possible. My relationship with my parents remained severed. My father had called once, his voice heavy with regret, but unable to fully separate himself from my mother's influence. I had wished him well, but maintained the boundary that protected Tyler and me from further manipulation. Tyler had thrived in the wake of these changes. Initially confused by the sudden absence of his grandparents, he had gradually adjusted to our new extended family, Grace and her husband, who hosted us for dinner each Sunday. William and his wife, who treated Tyler like an honorary grandson, and the diverse team at the collective, who delighted in his dinosaur knowledge and budding artistic talent. At 7, he was now in 2nd grade, his confidence growing daily. The trauma of the wedding incident had faded, replaced by positive experiences and honest conversations about family, boundaries, and the importance of surrounding yourself with people who genuinely care for your well-being. Jamie? Emily's voice pulled me from my reflection. They're ready for you. I nodded and headed toward the conference room, pausing briefly to admire the framed certificate on the wall. American Design Association Independent Creator Award, Jamie Thompson, Bloom Organic Campaign. The recognition that had once been my secret achievement was now prominently displayed as a testament to persistence and authentic talent. The client meeting went exceptionally well. The Westside Children's Hospital representatives connected deeply with our approach, not manipulating emotions for marketing purposes, but authentically reflecting the compassion and hope that defined their work. As we wrapped up, the hospital's marketing director shook my hand warmly. "This is exactly what we've been looking for," she said. "Someone who understands that integrity in messaging matters just as much as visual impact." "That's the foundation of everything we do here," I replied, feeling a surge of pride in what we had built. After the clients departed, I checked my watch. 2:30, time to pick up Tyler from school. One of the non-negotiable elements of my new professional life was maintaining flexibility for my son. No matter how busy things got, I left the office each day to greet him after school, dedicating those afternoon hours entirely to him before handling any remaining work in the evening. As I gathered my things, my phone chimed with a text from Drew. "Congratulations on the ADA award announcement. Well, deserved recognition." I hadn't spoken to him since that day in the park, though I'd followed the news of Harrington Marketing's transformation. According to industry gossip, he had refocused the firm on ethical business practices and transparent client relationships, perhaps his own form of redemption. I didn't respond to the text. Some chapters were better left closed. Outside Tyler's school, children streamed through the doors in colorful waves of backpacks and lunchboxes. When Tyler spotted me, his face lit up with a smile that never failed to warm my heart. He ran toward me, a paper clutched in his hand. "Mom, I got an A on my dinosaur report. And Miss Reynolds said my drawings were the best in class." I hugged him tightly. "That's amazing, buddy. I'm so proud of you. Can we put it on the fridge at home? And at your office?" he asked, brown eyes serious. "Absolutely. Double display for double awesomeness." As we walked to the car, Tyler chattering about his day, I reflected on how far we had come. The pain of family betrayal still surfaced occasionally, but it no longer defined us. We had built something stronger, a life where trust wasn't a vulnerability to be exploited, but the foundation of genuine connection. That evening, after Tyler was asleep, I sat on our apartment balcony with a glass of wine, reviewing designs for an upcoming pitch. My phone rang with William's number. "Jamie, good news," he said without preamble. "The Portland Business Journal wants to feature the collective in their Innovators Reshaping the Industry issue. They specifically requested to interview you about building an ethical alternative to traditional agency models." I smiled, watching the city lights glimmer against the darkening sky. "That's wonderful. When would they want to do it?" "Next week. And there's more. The university wants to establish a scholarship in partnership with the collective. Full tuition for one promising design student each year who demonstrates both talent and financial need." Emotion welled up unexpectedly. "A scholarship? That would be incredible." "I thought you'd approve," William said warmly. "We could name it after someone who inspires you." Later that night, I sat at my desk finalizing the scholarship proposal. At the top of the document, I typed, "The Tyler Thompson Future Creators Scholarship Investing in Authentic Talent and Ethical Creative Leadership," because ultimately that was the greatest lesson from everything we had endured. Authentic talent, paired with ethical choices and genuine relationships, could not only survive betrayal but flourish beyond it. The path wasn't always easy or straightforward, but it led to something far more valuable than the shortcuts offered by those who sought to use rather than nurture our gifts. 1 year to the day after Amber's wedding, I stood on a different stage accepting the American Design Association Award for Independent Creator of the Year. Tyler sat in the front row beside William and Emily, his small hands clapping enthusiastically as I approached the microphone. "Thank you for this recognition," I began. "This award honors not just creative work, but the principle that how we create matters as much as what we create. True success comes not from taking shortcuts or exploiting others' talents, but from building something authentic and enduring something that reflects our highest values rather than our momentary ambitions. I looked directly at Tyler, whose face shone with pride. I dedicate this award to my son, who taught me that our greatest strength lies not in avoiding vulnerability, but in choosing carefully who we trust with it. And to everyone who has ever faced the choice between the easy wrong and the difficult right, may you find the courage to choose your integrity every time. It's worth it, I promise. The applause washed over me like a wave, but it was Tyler's beaming face that mattered most, the living proof that we could overcome betrayal and build something beautiful from its ashes. Not just a successful business or professional recognition, but a life defined by authentic connection and the courage to stand firmly in our own truth. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever experienced betrayal from those who should have supported you, know that you're not alone. I hope my journey gives you hope that healing and success are possible, even after deep wounds. Remember, your worth isn't defined by how others treat you, but by the integrity and courage with which you face life's challenges. Have you ever had to rebuild trust after a betrayal? How did you find the strength to move forward? Share your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of resilience and triumph, and share with someone who might need to hear that they too can rise above family betrayal. Until next time, be kind to yourselves and choose your circle wisely.